I could do that. I bet they can hear us now. Hold on, I'm gonna switch this camera here. That's why. Yep. I'm glad I checked it. Hang on, I'll fix it. I'll fix it. You don't want to just see him? It's just on Wade. Yeah. Okay. All right, that should have worked.
This is heavy.
Just looking at Wade here. There we go. Okay. All right. How are you guys?
Great.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Let's just break the ice a little bit while we wait to see if people will show up and want to join us online. But let's hear some like highs and lows over the last couple weeks, because we didn't have this last week, huh? This has been 2 weeks now that we.
We had the highs and lows last week.
Yeah, you did highs and lows last week. What's been going on over the last couple weeks? Anybody can speak.
Not much.
Joe teased us with some potential.
I thought he meant the weather or something.
We're experiencing that today. Apparently, it's
Do you
getting.
have any highs or lows?
The bounce kids were here, and fixed homes and stuff, Monday and Tuesday of last week.
That's good.
Spent the week at the lake, that's a high. The
Yeah.
lows, we had to come home.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Yeah. How about this side of the table?
I did my normal stuff, but I did enjoy not having as much to do,
Yeah.
but I still do my normal everyday routine. So I guess I did go eat at the festival.
Yeah. What's your
And-
favorite festival food?
Well, normally it's chicken sausage gumbo, but they were not there this time, so I got the barbecue sandwich, the chip or
Yeah.
cut barbecue sandwich, whatever you call it. That was really good. And bloomin' onion, we have to have one of those. And
These things
you
are
know,
like $15. Like, it was
they were
crazy expensive.
$10. They
Yeah.
were
Oh,
$10.
$10. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Wow.
And they were
It was the
beautiful.
turkey leg that was $15.
Oh yes,
That's
those
right.
smell really good.
Yeah, they
I was
do.
almost tempted to go bite someone's.
Can I just give you a dollar
The
for a
smell
bite?
was so
Yeah.
good. It was really good.
Tomahawk steaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do that, to get one. And
Gnaw on it.
That's like if you've ever been to Branson and go to the Dolly Parton, what is that?
The Stampede.
This, yeah, Dixie Stampede.
Yeah, we've been
They
there.
just feed you like they just give you a whole chicken, like just for you. Like here's an entire chicken. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
my
this is
goodness.
great. I like this.
Your dad
Pigeon
Cornish
forge.
hens.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
I'll take it. My favorite food there, they haven't had for the last 2 years, but it was the pork nachos,
oh yes,
and they
those are
quit
good.
doing that, unfortunately. So,
I guess the food wagons change, or the people, or they may want to just rotate food, but
maybe. Oh, I know Chance is always really busy over there.
Hamburgers.
Yeah. Boy, they eat that stuff like crazy. I never understood that though.
Me either.
Like you can go get a hamburger at
It's
any
like-
point.
it's a
Why?
burger.
yeah.
Right? I'm
I
gonna
mean, it's
get
good. I
something
did it. I got
different.
it. So there you go.
Yeah. The line, is that the one at the Optimist?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is it about that burger? I don't get it.
I don't know.
People line up for that thing.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
like,
Well, Caitlin did try the Monte Cristo peanut butter and jelly sandwich,
ooh, yum.
Oh,
and she thought that was really good.
really?
Sounds good.
And she also got the fried Oreo. She always
I
liked.
did
Oh,
that
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It
got
was-
some of those too.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, you have to forgive me. I'm still battling this whatever Southeast Texas junk. So I'm on as much synthetic energy as I possibly can be at the moment. But we are. If you're joining us online, I just need to put that out there as well. Make sure you check in with us. Let us know you're listening. Let us know you're watching, and that way we can, put him to work. That's why he's our host here. So, but before we start going down chapter 45, I did want to open up with just a few moments of just reflection. Open the table, or if you're online, just to, I want this to be a way for us to be able to talk about whatever comes to mind when it comes to Bible study, or if you're having your own personal Bible study times at home, and maybe you've come across something, and I just want this to be that an opportunity for you to kind of do that. So if you've got questions about the Joseph study that we haven't been able to clarify at different points, or in your own personal Bible study, let's just open up the table for a few moments for that. Any kind of reflection or questions?
Okay, you wanted us to look at 31, and that's Laban, who is the father of Leah and Rachel.
Right.
Rachel steals the gods, with
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing some kind of statue, or, I don't know, it never does say.
Yeah.
She, it doesn't say when she told him that she stole it, just that she stole it. Or does it in another place?
No, it doesn't. Like, Jake, we're not led to. Okay, so just as a recap, if you were here on Sunday night, I talked about how right before class, I kind of, in my Bible study time when I'm reading through stuff, every once in a while something will spark like a connection, and I noticed that some of the stuff that we read in chapter 44 seemed to line up with this situation where Laban overtakes Jacob and Leah and Rachel and their family as they take off in the night. They're heading back home. They're tired of being with Laban, so they are running back home. And in the process of it, there's this just seemingly random moment where it says that Rachel took the household gods of Laban, and then as he overtakes them, this is what he accuses Jacob of doing, and he searches through all their tents and stuff, and she ends up sitting on it and says that she's of the way of the woman. She's on her menstrual cycle, and so he can't reach underneath her to see if he's got them. But then it's not mentioned again. And if there's anything that you read, if there's nothing else you get out of this class, or any of the previous classes, like, I want you to know that there is no accidental or random stuff in any of this. Like, it's all so intentional, especially if I can say that about any other book. Genesis is for sure, every line of it is setting up something. So those random, strange, off the wall, to the left field details usually mean something. But, and so my challenge to you guys was, if you want to go down a rabbit hole and put into practice some of this, was to go and try to read that narrative. Because what happens is you'll start to see there's elements of the story that took place in 44 where the brothers come, he implants the silver cup in Benjamin's sack, and then he has somebody go overtake them and bring them back. One of the things that line up is Judah says in chapter 44, if you find it in any of our sack, whoever stole it, he deserves to die. Which, of course, we know Benjamin is caught with it. He doesn't die. That's never even said again. It said the same thing. Jacob says the exact same thing when he's speaking to Laban. He says, well, whoever has these, then they deserve death. Well, you know Rachel has it, but it's not brought back up. And then Joseph will say the same thing. I think it was Joseph, if I recall correctly, in chapter 44, where he says, what is this that you've done? You've taken this. Don't you know I can do divination? And Laban will say, almost word for word, the same thing. What is this that you've done to me, that you've taken this, or taken these things and my family and stuff? So the question is, like, why? Like, you'll know that these are connected by the multiple layers of connections, and as you read through it, you look for those multiple layers of connection. The answer is, I have no idea. I've not studied it. That's why I challenge you to do it, Scott. So once you figure that out, you let me know. But I have read a couple commentators on it, and most of the commentators kind of fall in the line of, well, these were often just relics that, pagan gods that surrounding cultures would worship, and maybe Rachel didn't want her father to worship them anymore, or maybe Rachel was trying to take control over her father at that point. But in those moments, my initial response is to go back to the text, and if it doesn't add or take away from it necessarily, I don't see the necessity for coming to that conclusion. You're having to take a jump, make a leap to fill that in, and I don't think maybe that was the point of it or the purpose of it. So I'm sure there's great answers out there, but I have a inkling to think that this will actually come to play much later down the line in Rachel's descendants, maybe in Benjamin or Ephraim and Manasseh, in their tribes. Maybe they'll fall into like worshiping these pagan idols and stuff. That's an inkling. I don't know that for sure, but I think that is there to set up more that will come in the future, maybe even something Moses will talk about later on in the first 5 books. But when you go and look at it and study it, you let me know if you come up with anything. There's certain elements. I just want to be clear about that. There's certain elements that the cursing of the little boys who curse Elijah, and then the bears eat them. It's always been a weird story for me. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this necessarily, and I've read a lot of explanations to it. For being bald, of course, for making fun of baldies. But
Look at you.
Maybe I'll get an answer to that one day. Maybe it'll show. But sometimes it's just about the journey more than the answer. So, yeah, it's a good question. And no answer. There you go. I'm really good at that. I just talk for a really long time to say I don't know. It's good. Anybody else? I saw you typing a whole bunch of stuff. So I
Need to
just
get
wanted
up
to know.
45, we're gonna get it.
Also, they talked about Laban had a dream, and then God gave Jacob a dream
Mhm.
as well about the livestock being spotted or striped or something.
Yeah, so God will use a set of dreams to speak what will happen next with regards to the Jacob and Laban situation. So it'll be a dream that Jacob has that will tell him to take these things and to leave. But then it'll be a dream that Laban has that says, don't bring harm upon Jacob for leaving. And so there's, I think that there's more to all that, but again, it's playing on this motif of the dreams and the pairs of dreams, and they're also going back to the land of Canaan here at this point as well, and so there's multiple things at play there. But yeah, the dreams will be something that will be a thing that God will use to move the people. Mhm. Anything else before we start 45? All right. Wade, would you open us up in prayer, and then we'll start reading?
Heavenly Father God, thank you for this time that we can come together and dive into your word deeper. Father, I pray that you help us to be receptive to what you have to say to us today as we look into your word. Father, thank you again for Adam and the time that he spent studying so that he can assist us in learning. And we pray.
Amen. Okay, so where we left off is verse 33 of chapter 44. Now therefore, please let your servants remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord. Judah is going to step into the role of the intercessor before Joseph. And this will be the breaking point. The testing is complete. He's passed the test that Joseph has implanted for the brothers, and now what we'll see is Joseph's reaction, starting in verse 45, or chapter 45, verse 1. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud. So the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near. And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land for these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on the earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, the Lord of all his house and ruler over all of the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord over all of Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, and you and your children and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, for there are yet 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father of all of my honor in Egypt, and of all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here. Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers, and he wept upon them. After that his brothers talked with him. When the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers have come, it pleased Pharaoh and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your beasts, go back to the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt. You shall eat of the fat of the land, and you, Joseph, are commanded to say, do this, take wagons from the land of Egypt, for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. Have no concern for your goods, for the best of all the land in Egypt is yours. The sons of Israel did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and gave them provisions for the journey. To each and all of them he gave a change of clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver, and 5 changes of clothes. To his father he sent as follows: 10 donkeys loaded with good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for his father on the journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and they departed, and said to him, do not quarrel on the way. So they went up out of Egypt, and came to the land of Canaan, to their father Jacob. And they told him, Joseph is still alive, and he is the ruler over all of the land of Egypt. And his heart became numb, for he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them, and when he had saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is alive. I will go see him before I die. Okay. So, initial thoughts. Anything stand out when we read that?
I wonder what the look on his brother's face was, on their faces was whenever he said, I am your brother that you
Yeah.
sold into slavery.
I think kind of shock and fear.
Yeah.
Like, what's he gonna do
Yeah,
to
what-
us
Yeah.
now? Yeah.
Verse 3 at the end of it. What does it say? What does your translation say as far as their look?
Mine's dismayed.
Dismayed. Yours has terrified.
Mine has terrified at his presence.
Yeah, this is one where I think the ESV doesn't do justice necessarily to, because the word itself is like shaken to the core, terrified. Like any other time it's used, it's usually in a sense of certain death, ultimately. So dismayed, I feel like, is a little lighter of a tone. And terrified,
It says troubled.
troubled. Yeah.
Troubled at his presence.
How long had it been since they sold him into slavery, since they last seen him? Yes.
So it's the best guess is this has been probably a good 20 to 30 years later at this point. I know there's math that they've figured out that kind of determine how long it's probably been, but I feel comfortable saying 20 to 30 years. I mean, they're all grown at this point, and they're having kids, and
So they just
so-
wouldn't recognize him, it wasn't like he was hiding this.
yeah, he's there's multiple theories behind that, but ultimately, yeah, it's that we're kind of led to believe that Joseph is kind of accepting his role as an Egyptian, which is going to make he's dressed like, he's acting like, he's taken the language of, and so I think that has helped in the veiling process of Joseph as well.
My guess is the brothers are thinking, hey, why you been screwing with us for the last 3 trips over here?
You kept sending us back. I know that was a question on Sunday night, was how long it would take, and it was according to one commentator, he said a 3-day journey there and then 3 days back, kind of thing, and so a multiple day trip. But yeah, so you come from the brother stand. Do you have brothers?
No.
No brothers? Okay. So yeah, that's probably would have been a thought I would have had if I had brothers too. Really?
My thought on part of this too was Benjamin. I think I would be afraid for Joseph to give me all that extra stuff because, I mean, they put that. I mean, it's like, what's going to happen to me now?
Yeah.
You know, because in the
It's
chapter
already
before,
happened once, yeah.
you know, in the chapter
Yeah.
before, you're almost going to die here, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, because you're found with I don't know, I wonder what Benjamin was thinking whenever,
Well, even if he's the only one singled out that Jacob,
Mhm.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Joseph,
Favored, yeah.
hugged him, and then it said, and then the rest of his brother.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, he hugged and kissed him, and it singled him out, and then he did the same with the rest.
Mhm.
The rest of them were his half-brothers.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, this was his
Yep.
full brother, yeah.
Made a little difference.
A little
A
bit.
little bit of favoritism.
I think too that the brothers had to be thinking back when he told them about his dream, that he was,
Yeah.
that
Mm.
people would be bowing to them, they would be bowing to him, and his dream actually came true.
Mm.
So I feel like they were thinking, what, he told the truth.
Yeah.
His dream did come true, and he did what he.
because he's over all of
Yeah,
Egypt.
yeah,
I will say that is something to note, is that that's not ever brought back up.
yeah.
Like, we're not ever
It's
given a
forgotten,
conclusion as far as that
basically.
goes. Like, you
Mhm.
kind of are led to infer the fact that, oh yeah, they all bowed to him.
Mhm.
Everybody had to.
Mhm.
But in the back of their minds, he told them that he could do divination or whatever.
Mm.
They gotta think, hey, maybe he can, because he told us this back when he was a child, that
Mm.
this was gonna happen.
And he forgave his brothers for what they did to him and provided for them because he loved them. He didn't quit loving them.
Yeah.
And he could've
Because
said,
he
"I told you
was,
so."
yeah, he
Yeah,
feels
he
like
can't be very
that
welcoming.
God was the reason, I think,
Yeah.
that he's the one that, he did it. So he's letting the brothers know that God was in control,
Yeah.
not him. He did what God led him to do.
Yeah, he really encompasses that initial picture of the suffering servant.
Mhm.
Ultimately, he's the one who will suffer innocently
Mhm.
to serve everyone else. Yeah.
But it's the king that winds up giving all the stuff to the donkeys and saying, hey,
Yeah.
take the food back. And so is this looking to the future when
Mm.
God gives us Jesus to forfeit his life for all of us?
Rephrase that. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
No, that's good. No, I think I understand what you're saying. So in other words, you're saying that the Pharaoh is the one who gives them
Yes.
all the stuff, and you're saying that's a forward painting picture towards what? Towards
Well,
Jesus.
God and Jesus
Mhm.
giving his life up for all of us.
Oh, okay. So you're equating like all of the riches that they're going to be given at this point is kind of, so the Pharaoh is sort of almost picturesque of what the future will entail for us. Is that what you mean?
If that makes sense.
That's okay. You're like, that's clearly what I
If
meant.
it doesn't, then no, that's not what.
What is the context to where we are? Like, what are we supposed to be thinking again, going into this chapter, with regards to where Joseph is?
Wrong land.
Wrong land. He's wrong people.
And that's why I kind of
Ruling.
wonder why the Pharaoh is even helping with all this.
That was the same thought I had. Okay, here he's bringing more people into Egypt that are not
Egyptians.
for that land. And so what was the purpose of bringing them there?
Well, and for us, we would look at that like, oh, Pharaoh is blessing these
Uh-huh.
people unnecessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does it lead to?
Yeah.
Are they
What's
really?
his
Is
plan?
he really? Is this really going to be a blessing to them in the long run?
Mm-hmm.
No, like not at all. This is going to lead to them enslaved. They're in the
Yeah.
wrong land with the wrong people.
Yep.
And I think so. I would venture to say that this is kind of a play on, again, we're still being brilliantly challenged with what we would consider as to be right, what we would consider as to be wrong, what would actually be a blessing. Like, God's going to also make good, I think, to his promise to Abraham to bless those who bless him and to curse those who curse them. And so for a while, I think Egypt will be blessed through this whole situation as well, because they have the choice to bless this situation. I think Pharaoh is choosing it. But it doesn't mean it's good, necessarily. Doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
You can just kind of see like the play of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to think of this, because at the end of the day, we're pulling, and this will come into play here in the next chapter for sure. We're pulling them from the land that they're supposed to be. In fact, in that chapter 31, that's the land they headed back to again. Like, we got to get back to this land that God's promised us, right now there's one plot of land that belonged to Israelites. It's the only plot of land that they actually own. It's the one that Abraham bought, the cave that to which will come into play here again. And this right here again is setting up the end to the whole Genesis scroll. And the end of the whole Genesis scroll, which I'm giving it away, but I don't care. I want to anyways. Is if you go to chapter 50 and you go to the very last line, it says, verse 22. It says, so Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's house. Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw Ephraim's children into the third generation. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped too far, but that's okay. The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were counted as Joseph's own. Skip down to 26. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
In Egypt.
And what we'll get to in next week is that's not where Jacob ends up. In fact, it's a whole to-do about him getting back to the land of Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And-
didn't he want to be buried by his son?
He wanted to be buried by his sons in the land that was promised to his grandfather. And Jake and Joseph will say the same exact thing, except we're left on the cliffhanger that, nope,
They didn't do it. Yeah.
nope, he's dead and he's buried in Egypt. And then you're just like, oh no, the wrong land, the wrong people, like buried in the wrong place. Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? And then turn to page 1 of Exodus and you start to realize what happens.
So,
Yeah.
another question came in, says, Joseph believes it was God's will for him to be sold to Egypt so he could ultimately save his family. However, because all the Israelites came to Egypt and multiplied, therefore many years later, they were made into slaves by another Pharaoh. I don't know how that
The
happened.
one after or something.
Was that God's will?
This is, again, this for me, I think we're so quick to want to weigh the scales certain ways. And the Bible's really good at trying to show you, like, quit weighing them certain ways, because the moment you think something is good, something bad comes from it. Something you think is bad, God will use for good somehow, and you're supposed to be left going like, all right, his ways are not our ways. Like, they're greater than ours, and we're not really all that good at deciding what is good. But what we can understand is that God knows, and God understands, and God is sovereign, and there's nothing that surprises God. And he could take these things that end up bad or things that we mess up and use them for good, you know. And just like the Israelites are God's chosen people, the Egyptians are sold, and the whole world is saved through this whole situation too. And so it's just it kind of like wipes the slate clean as far as trying to figure out what's right and wrong as far as people goes, and only looks towards allowing God to do that. And for us, we just have to see that, like, it's all humanity. It's just being human. It's the process of being human. Because the moment I place myself above the Egyptians is a moment that I'm saying I'm more special or chosen by God or whatever it may be, or justifiably in morals better than them, is a moment I've placed myself into God's position. And that's, I think this is from page 1 on, really trying to show you that we're not good at really, that's what causes wars, that's what causes death and destruction and taking advantage of, and slavery and human trafficking and all this stuff. It's lessening another individual, another part of God's creation below your own thoughts and standards, if that makes sense. And so I think you're supposed to question all these things. I think you're supposed to go, I don't think I get this at all, because I would have never ever sold my brothers into slavery. I said that was morally bad from the start, but it led to the salvation of everyone. So was it bad? Well, then it led to the enslavement of all Israelites.
Of all of
Well,
them.
maybe it was bad, but that led to Moses standing up and leading them out into. So was that bad? I don't know. Like, I don't know what's right or wrong. I think that the one who's in control and isn't surprised by it all, that's the one that we need to focus on more. Anything else? Did anything else?
Okay, so I don't see all the deep stuff y'all see. I see silly things like this. So,
Gotta have humor.
well, it's just, you know, but this kind of stuff, it irritates me. To his father he sent as follows: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for his father on the journey. Go.
Thank you for not reading the King James Version. I had to bleep it. But Yes.
Why does it say
Mhm.
female on one and not the other? Is it just a?
That's great. That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
It's a really good
You
question.
don't know.
I got no idea.
That's what kind of what I thought, maybe so that, yeah. But it doesn't say
Yeah.
the others are.
Could multiply.
Like you just
That's what I
assume.
was
Which will
thinking,
come into
something
play.
multiplied.
Which will come into play, we might as well just keep on going, right? Where are they gonna settle? What land are they gonna settle in?
Are you talking about in
In Exodus?
Exodus?
No, well, no, in that he specifically is gonna say, hey, look, you're gonna go and you're gonna stay here.
Egypt.
The land of Canaan.
In
huh?
Egypt, very specifically though, in Egypt.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was Egypt.
Starts with a G.
Goshen.
Yes, Goshen. So what we're gonna see now is we're gonna see a theme and a pattern that will take place, again, throughout the rest of Scripture, where man will attempt and create basically an Eden anywhere, like an Eden in all places. And what I mean by that is the letters that make up Goshen in Hebrew are the same start and ending for the word for garden, which is gon, gimel, and nun. Gon means garden. And so this is gimel shun nun, and Goshen is. And so it's one letter different, but it'd be kind of like him saying like, oh, you're going to come down and you're going to settle in the Garshin. Like you're going to settle in the Garshin. Oh, and what are you going to have in the Garshin? You're going to eat of all the amazing fat of the land, the fruit. They're going to be great. And then what we'll find out is that they are fruitful and go to Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1 will tell you exactly what they're doing in the Garshin.
Sounds like you have a list or something.
I know, right? In the Garshin. It'll say, in verse 6, Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. But the people of Israel, they were fruitful, they increased greatly, multiplied, and grew exceedingly strong in the land, and the land was filled with them. Now, what comes to mind when I say that? Like, be fruitful, multiply, fill the whole earth.
Going to eat.
In the beginning.
Adam and Eve told them to be
Yeah.
fruitful.
They're taking the blessing of God, and they're doing it in the Garshin. But is that good? Enter the new Pharaoh, the new king of the land, right? Who don't know these people, and guess how he'll deal with him? He'll deal, it says in verse 10, come, let us deal shrewdly with them, which is a direct reflection of the serpent in the garden. And so now we're back on repeat, except now instead of the garden, we're in the Garshin. They've done the blessing of God, but now here insert the next serpent who've enslaved the people, and they're in the wrong land, wrong place still. They're living in exile, and so it's just playing with all those little themes that we've been reading all throughout Genesis. And so you get the idea that they're not only are they bringing back the male donkeys and the female donkeys, but what are they loaded with? Very specifically, what are they loaded with?
Oh.
Corn, wheat?
Yeah, all the,
The good thing.
No, what does it say very specifically?
Chapter, which?
It is in chapter 45.
The female with grain, bread, and provision.
Yeah, so are we bringing fruit back? Are we bringing grain back? We're bringing grain and bread. Has bread been a theme that we're constantly seeing a little
And
bit?
provision.
And provisions. He's going to go real undetailed at this moment, right?
Yeah.
But it's just little tiny, the best way I can explain it is like, it's just little winks. They're little winks of like, hey, by the way, we're going to take the male and the female donkey, each of their own kind, right? We're going to go back to the land of the Garshin, where they're going to have all that they want, all that they could ever want. It's going to be fruitful. And who's providing it? Oh, Pharaoh. In the wrong land, with the wrong people. And they're going to be fruitful, and they're going to multiply. But it'll lead to enslavement and exile, because we don't live in the garden yet. We're still in exile. We're in Garshin now, yeah. We're in man-made garden, right? And it's going to be a theme that will just continue to build out.
So, in verse 3, Joseph said unto his brother, I am Joseph, does my father yet live?
Hmm.
And they didn't answer him,
Hmm.
because they were troubled,
Hmm.
right? And then you go down to, oh goodness, where he talks about sending them to go see, here it is in verse 9, haste ye and go up to my father and say unto him, thus saith thy son Joseph. They never answered his question. How does he even know that his father's alive?
Every word is so intentional. Why would it matter for them to not just not answer, but could not answer him?
You know, they couldn't.
He probably already knew that from the chapter before,
But why is he asking again now?
because he said it would kill his father. So he should assume that he was already alive to start
He
with.
doesn't believe him.
Can you think of another
He doesn't
time?
believe him, surprisingly. He doesn't believe his brothers.
We're in a theme of growth, right?
Yeah.
This is what makes him break down is, oh, my brothers have learned. They've grown, right? Can you think of another time when the brothers could not speak?
Well, whenever they brought that coat
They
back
didn't tell
to the
their
dad
father.
saying, hey,
Yeah, so right before that, though, at the beginning of the chapter,
Oh.
what does it say? What does it say in chapter 37? What does it say about the brothers? How did they feel about Joseph? Chapter 37?
They were jealous of him.
well,
They were incredibly jealous of him. So much so that they could not speak a
Yeah.
kind word to him, right?
Mhm.
So now we go from can't speak anything nice,
Couldn't speak.
now they can't speak at all.
Mhm.
And we're contrasting that with Joseph, could not control his emotions anymore. He's overwhelmed with this. And then how does this complete? It completes at verse 15 of 45.
Weeping.
Yep, at the end of it, though.
He kissed all his brothers
And they talked.
and they talked to him.
And what you just saw is a nice tied up beautiful bow in this beautiful literary cycle of it starts where the brother's jealous, they can't speak a word to him, it sells him into slavery. All this happens. Now they can't speak for fear, but in his emotions are causing him not to hold back anymore. And now here they go, they all embrace. And now we can go back and talk. It's just a random line where they're just sitting there talking, right? But you can see how literarily that just tied everything back up together, right? We're all one cohesive thing anymore. In fact, this will be something that will come to play at the end of Revelation, or in Revelation 21, when it talks about in the new heaven, there's going to be like a gate. There'll be 12 gates that surround them, and on the names of each of those gates will be the names of the brothers. And it'll be another picture of the time where all the brothers are embracing each other in a gate, in a picturesque way, a city around the new city, the new Jerusalem, the new heavens, the new earth. So it's just a tiny like wink of, hey, there'll be another time when these 12 brothers will embrace again, and it'll be around the new heaven, the new earth, and all of that again. But it's just a way to, it's kind of that chiastic structure where they can't speak a word, now they can talk again. It's just a random line in there that doesn't add anything, take anything away with it, but you can see how, oh, we've grown. It's happened. It worked. They can now talk.
I have a question.
Yeah?
And I've read part of it forward and I've read part of it back. But I'm trying to remember, okay, so does Joseph's dad ever find out that he was alive before he died?
Before Jacob dies? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's going to come down.
Okay.
He'll come down to be with them in the land of Goshen. Yeah.
So he dies, his daddy dies in Goshen.
Yes, because what's going to happen, the reason why we're going to kind of skip through next week, we'll finish the last 5 chapters. We're not going to hit everything, is he's going to take them down a line of blessings for the families and whatnot. And there's some little, really, I mean, there's a lot of important stuff in there, but just for sake of time, we're going to kind of skip through that a little bit. And he'll bless them all, and then he'll have the request to Joseph that, please don't let me die down here. Don't let me be buried down here. I want to be taken back up. And Pharaoh will be okay with it and send him back up. And
So did he have questions, I wonder, for the brothers that had brought that garment back? And
yeah, so that brings up the question of don't quarrel, because I know that kind of brought up a little bit of a line. Well, what was everyone's thought when he says like, hey, don't hurry, go, don't start quarreling
it's
on
like,
the
I
trip.
told you, we should have not done this, or,
Uh-huh.
Just behave.
Behave, do not quarrel on the way.
play the blame game.
So did any of your translations say something different? It's a verse 24, yeah.
fall not out, by the
What?
Okay, that's like,
Say that
way.
again?
King James,
yeah.
see that you fall not out, by the way.
See that you fall not out. So,
It's not a falling out.
yeah, if you, what do you think of when you think of quarreling in your mind?
Bickering.
Arguing.
Argument.
Yeah, it's like any road trip you've ever done with your brothers, I'm
With your
pretty sure.
kid, oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Don't look at
quarreling.
each other, don't touch each
Yeah,
other.
don't touch each other. You sit on this side of the car and you sit on this one.
But the word for quarrel here, want to try that?
What is it? Let's see.
Regaz, yeah. It means to tremble or to quake or to rage or to quiver or to be agitated, to be excited or perturbed. This will be the same kind of word that's used when earthquakes happen. The earth is quarreling. It's regazing,
In other
right?
words, he gave them all a good dose of Benadryl so they'd sleep.
Well, okay, put yourself in the brother's position now, right? I don't know why this came to my mind. What is it that, what was that old show where, I keep thinking of the Vitamin and Vegemin.
Lucy?
Lucy.
I love Lucy. Lucy, you got some splaining to do. I don't know why I thought about that. But think about the brothers who are now going to bring a report, a bad report back to the father, hint, hint, or a good report back to the father, hint, hint. Oh, he's going to bring a good report now to the father. There's another tie up here because he brought a bad report. They're going to bring a good report. But Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
Yeah.
Because suddenly this brother is that we've all assumed has died is now alive. So you think that they were quaking
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
the whole way
It's
back.
like,
How
are we gonna, that's
are
probably what they
we?
quarreled
Yeah,
about, if
yeah.
they were to quarrel on the way back.
How are
It's
we
like,
to
how are we
explain
gonna
this?
explain this?
Yeah.
And this is a moment where Joseph gets to sit here and go, God had this whole thing planned out, right?
And not
Don't
only-
don't quake on your way home.
And not
Just
only was he
let's
not
go.
dead, but he was in a place of authority.
Yeah. Yep.
In
got a
the
footnote
wrong
on
land.
In the wrong land with the wrong
We got
people.
a footnote on 24, it says, don't quarrel, it says Joseph wanted nothing to delay their return. See note on verse 9. It talks about that, and then he wanted them to avoid mutual accusation and recrimination concerning the past.
Mm.
That's what my
Yeah.
said.
Yep.
Anything that would keep them from returning.
Yep.
And
In other
verse-
words, like,
verse
just
9,
focus
it
on the
says,
end.
Now
Let's go.
hurry back to my father. As he, like he figured he needed some time to get him back there quickly.
Yep. I mean, could you imagine 30 years and you find out your dad's still alive? You know, here's another question for you. Why didn't Joseph just go back with him?
Because
He
he was
goes-
over the other people. Couldn't just up.
6-day trip, I mean, roughly. I mean, he could probably,
He's now an Egyptian.
he's what?
He's now an Egyptian.
It's an interesting thought. Interesting thought.
Would you go back with your brothers after they did what they did last time?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Brothers not in a
Alone on the road.
position of authority.
Yeah, he's already been in the pit once because of
Yeah.
I wouldn't go with them.
Maybe the fear of shocking his father, just
Yeah.
seeing him instead
Yeah.
of being told
Yeah,
ahead of
once
time.
bitten, twice shy.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for it, I think.
I
I can see all those. I think, for me, I think there's probably a moment where he's allowing them to go and fess up, like ultimately, like, you guys go make this right now and bring your father back down here. Couple of things of note. The main focus here, focal point from verse 5 through 8 is ultimately like God is the one who orchestrated this whole thing. Like he's the one who did this, but for what reasons? Into verse 5 will give you
To preserve life, it says.
to preserve life, and then what life? Verse 7, like what? Very specifically, to preserve not just a life, but
Remnant on earth.
Mhm. Yep. What is that? What do you think that means?
I think it's a Jewish nation, personally. I think that's what it
Mm-hmm. Jewish nation, yeah.
Yeah, it is to preserve their lives and, and, and their survivors too.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
was part of the reasons to keep their family group alive
Mhm.
and not have it all be killed off, maybe,
Yeah.
that he
Why
still
would
wanted-
that be important? Why would it be important to keep them?
It's the promise God made him.
Yes. Which was what?
That you will be multiplied by the sons of the seed, and that his seed would continue.
Yep.
And on to Jesus, basically.
Yeah. So that through him all nations will be blessed. Yep. And so this is going to be playing off of the Noah narrative, where a remnant, a righteous remnant, will be brought through the decreation, through the chaos, in order through him will then bring blessing through all the world. And so it's going to be a situation where this had to happen in order to protect the righteous remnant from death and destruction. And this righteous remnant will then go on and it'll continue on down to the line of Jesus. And I wrote this down in my notes. I thought this was an interesting thought. This will not be the last time that Egypt will be used to preserve a remnant that will lead to new life for all of the world. Can you think? Well, Esther, yeah. Can you think of another time, like in the New Testament,
Jesus is again.
when, hey, Herod is trying to kill all the babies. You guys have to leave. You have to go. And they go down to Egypt, and it'll be the time that the remnant will be safe through the belly of the beast, through the grave in Egypt, in order that new life will begin to take place. And so, again, you can just see like slight, clear pictures of what Jesus is doing and what God's doing through all this in each one of these little things.
But why didn't we know when the flood came? Because the evil on the earth.
Hmm?
Why did the famine even come? So Joseph needed to save his family. I mean, God's in control of
Yeah.
nature, so why was the famine allowed so that they needed saving?
That goes back to a conversation we had several weeks ago when it came to the fact is, like, does God change his mind? Does God orchestrate, the disasters? Does he facilitate, or does he, in his foreknowledge, allow for the human partnership to be a part of his will and planning? And so, in other words, did he orchestrate a famine, or did, knowing that the famine was going to occur and knowing the all potential ways that this could play, it work in his advantage, the way that he wants it to? And I have that answer of I don't have a clue. I don't know. I think it does show that we're in a fallen, broken, not good world, ultimately. God has the power to do things, but also we've shown that, thank goodness, he does not do it the way we think he should, because that does not always work out well. Yeah.
It shows that God is not, he is so generational
Mm.
too. Like, our
Mhm.
viewpoint is from when we're born to when we die.
Right.
But God's is so
He exists outside of time. Time was created at that point, and so he exists outside of that. And so, like for instance, I'll kind of show this point. Have you ever thought about why Israel? Why was Israel the nation to which he chose to give to his people? I don't have a map in here, do I? No, I don't. Anybody ever thought about that?
Well, Joseph was able to tell him about his dream. When he was talking about Joseph and the Pharaoh.
Well, okay, so, but why would Israel be the nation, like the actual location of Israel? Why would that be considered the promised land? Like, if you've ever seen Israel from even outer space,
Yeah.
what does it look like, for the most part?
Desert.
Yeah, it's like brown, rocky desert. It's not ideal. Now, there are some beautiful parts around it, for sure. But if you were to pick out of all of the Fertile Crescent areas, including down here in Goshen, around the Nile, where it's all beautiful and green, you would not pick there, right? Humans would, that's not, there's a reason why most people who come and conquer Israel, they conquer Israel and then take them back home. They have no interest in staying there, like, because it's not a great place to live, to be honest, right? But by making it the promised land, two things happen. Number one, every single world nation that will come to play over all of existence will all take place on the outside of that and will require to travel through it in order to trade, in order to conquer, in order to, every one of them will require to go through Israel in order to do it. So it will not be a world conquering nation, but it will absolutely be one through which all the world conquering nations will have to go through. So it'll be an influential nation. It'll be incredibly influential. And number two, the very land he picked safeguarded his people into naturally having to rely on him to exist. They had to have rains for them to drink water. They had to have rains and storms and the right conditions for things to grow. They needed the God element to rely on him in order to exist in this really not great land. Meanwhile, all the other ones, they're watered, they're doing great, they're self-sufficient. And I think it protected them from becoming a world crazy superpower, but one that would ultimately, like in this story, the Ishmaelites would be coming down through the trade route, and that is through which they will become culturally influential to all of those nations, as opposed to being a world superpower. So I don't remember how we got to that. I don't remember how we started. Did God create the famine or not? I think it's difficult to play, but I just think he's got it under control. Yeah. That's good. We've not hit everything. Obviously, there's so much more in all of this that I think is really interesting. But we are seeing, we've now kind of tied into a bow, like this what started this and where we've ended it. They're now all reclothed now, just like he was, even with Benjamin getting the 5 extra pairs and the extra silver and the extra gold and stuff like that. But we're left off with, okay, now we got to get Jacob back down. And so that's what we'll pick up on Wednesday night, and we'll finish 46 all the way through 50 on Sunday night, And so, in closing, what's your thoughts been so far now that we've kind of wrapped up a lot of this?
I've got another
Yeah.
footnote on 45:18. It says, "You can enjoy the fat of the land," an echo of Isaac's blessing on Jacob.
Mm.
See 27:28.
Mm.
That's part of bringing him back. Well, I look at it, maybe.
Yeah. 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 Just the wrong land.
Well, didn't say what land, it just said the fat of the land.
I'll end with this too. How many tribes are there? Do you know how many tribes of Israel there will be?
Should be 12.
Yeah, I know, me too.
So, but when you go down the list of the 12, who is not included in the 12 tribes of Israel? Have you ever heard of the tribe of Joseph?
Mm-mm.
Have you ever heard? Have you heard of the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh? That's his sons. So why, when you count those up, that equals 13. So where do we get 12 tribes from? And why isn't Joseph?
You just want to start a pot.
I am.
Because they were Egypt.
Yeah, yes.
He was left in Egypt.
Yes. So we get the idea that Joseph is kind of like fully like incorporated down here in Egypt now.
Yeah.
But his sons are still half. And the 2 half sons of Israel ultimately will make up one whole. But the Levites will not own any land in Israel, so they won't be counted. And Manasseh and Ephraim will be counted as the other 2, so that'll equal up 12. And every once in a while they'll call them in like Chronicles and stuff. they'll call it the tribe of Joseph, but what they mean is Manasseh and Ephraim. Mm-hmm. So there's your fun Bible fact for the day. Anything else?
I'm doing that in family.
Yeah.
Stands out to me.
Yeah. So now as you read through these future narratives where these tribes become whole people groups, be on the lookout for how their people groups will reenact the sins of their founding father ultimately, and how favoritisms and Benjamin ultimately will be almost all killed at the hands of his brothers later on down the line at the end of Judges. Except it'll be the people group of Benjamin as opposed to Benjamin, and they'll be forced to have to intermarry in order to correct that. And then you'll see it's like they put the cap on of these founding fathers and watch how they'll continue this interplay throughout the rest of the book until ultimately what happens like when they're exiled out and lost for wherever. But
So they do continue to quarrel.
yes, they do continue to quarrel. That's good. All right.
Really big family.
I think we're right on time, 1 o'clock. So I'm going to pray, and then we can end this. God, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the time that we've got to spend in this Joseph study. As we wrap it all up, God, I'm so thankful that the takeaway that we can get in this is while we are really, really good at constantly trying to mess really everything up, I'm thankful that it's not a surprise to you. You're the constant, you're the consistent, you're the one who's sovereign, who's got this all under control. And I'm very, very thankful for that, God, that we have a hope, that you continued to keep a remnant safe in Egypt, and that you would do it again through yourself, through Jesus, and that because of that we will have a hope for restoration back into the promised land, back with you in the new heavens and the earth, and able to look back on this just bewildered at the fact that you were in control the whole time. God, we're so thankful for that. We love you in your name. Amen.